Welcome everybody. Thank you so much for coming along. We've pretty much got a full house, so there's a couple of spots here. Nobody wanted to sit here, it's a little bit too close to the front. But thanks for coming along, it's wonderful to be here. I'm Danielle Stein-Fairhurst and I run a company called Plum Solutions. I'm a financial modelling specialist. I'm based in Sydney, but I get around quite a lot. I've just been running a financial modelling and Excel training course today, so I do get down to Melbourne quite a lot, and I try to run these meetup sessions whenever I can, and I'm so excited that we've managed to get a fantastic speaker for you today. I started the meetup groups last year. I know quite a few of you have been to one of these before, but if you haven't, I started a LinkedIn financial modelling and Excel group a few years ago, and it's really quite popular with lots and lots of discussions. It's fantastic. People all over the world join in and reply to each other on these forums and learn and get together and help each other online. Because it's kind of a bit of a lonely thing that we do. Working in Excel, it's, our friends and partners, they don't always get it. We don't always have somebody that we can talk to about our love for Excel and our love for modelling. So I thought it would be nice to get everybody out from behind their desks and create an opportunity for people to get together and have a safe place to discuss Excel. So I'm really excited that we've managed to get Marcelo to be our guest speaker. He is a VBA and macro expert. He has a lot of experience in process automation, so using Excel and VBAs and macros. He is sort of running a side business with some online training. So he's from Brazil, and he's he's just launching these online courses which are in Portuguese, which is I think an amazing thing to have. He's done lots and lots of training though in all over the world, here in Melbourne and Korea.
Yeah, I've done training, yes, Melbourne, Australia, Korea, India, Brazil, all over the place. Yeah.
So he's going to be telling us today about 5 ways to speed up the Excel model building process with macros and VBA. So thank you so much.
All right, thanks everyone for coming along tonight. It's, as Danielle said, the full house. So also thanks Danielle for organizing this event. It's a great opportunity for us to meet with people and talk about Excel. As she said, we love Excel, so we want to talk about it. But most people, they don't understand what we are talking about. So today we're going to talk about macros and VBA. I've been working with macros and VBA for the last 10 years in different applications, starting as an engineer, automating some technical, testing and reports, and now most recently as a manager, creating reports for the boss, finance forecasts, travel forecasts, all these kind of things. So in different applications, but at the end of the day, it's all macros, so the language is the same, so you just change a little bit what you're doing. Okay, so today we're going to cover 3 main topics. The first one is when to use macros. The second one, I'm going through five applications that we can implement with macros. And then we are going to talk about some best practices to develop a macro, right? So just in the last meetup I discussed with some people from finance, and it seems most people said they avoid macros in their financial modeling, right? So then I asked some friends outside here as well, and they said the same thing. They try to avoid macros, and the main reason is what if the macro stops working, right? And that happens a lot, right? So in fact, I had one guy coming to me a few weeks ago. He had a massive workbook and it just stopped working, right? And he had to send a report to his boss, it wasn't working. So the guy who created the workbook left the company, right? So what do you do in this case? And that kind of was a surprise for me, people avoiding macros, because macros is so helpful for my day-to-day activities. I can automate so many things and save so much time. And then I was doing some research and asked in the LinkedIn group what people think about macros in financial modeling. And I also asked the question in Quora, because Quora has so many questions. People ask about Google, Facebook, and I also asked in there what people think about macros in financial modeling. And it seems most of them had the same answer. They said, we try to avoid as much as possible because in financial modeling, in most cases, our modules are critical for the business. They cannot stop, right? They cannot break. So, and then I was thinking about that, so how can we use macros in financial modeling without compromising the core activity? So my conclusion was, you have your core financial modeling, you don't put macros in there for your formulas, right? So what you can do, you can create tools or applications that would be helping you with some other tasks. For example, reporting, or formatting, or auditing, or data inputs. Right? So those kind of tasks that is time-consuming, non-value-added task, you just put a macro in there, right? So if the macro stops working, it's fine. You just go back to your normal manual process, okay? But while the macro is working, you're saving a lot of time and a lot of money, all right? So I'm not sure if everyone can see the screen, but those are the 5 examples that we are going to show tonight about macros, right? So
we're going to send a copy of this presentation. Is that right? So you'll send it to me. If you signed up when you subscribed. If you signed up for it, we'll send it through to you.
So yes, so we're going to share this presentation as well as the Excel file that we're going to use for the demonstration here. So you can always go back and have a look in the files in the macro that are in there. So we are going to have pretty much 7 applications that I'm going to share with you tonight. So the first one is one problem that we discussed in the last meetup. People open the workbook, they make a lot of changes, they send a report, and then they found that it was a manual calculation. So this simple macro is going to automatically show you your workbook is in manual, right? As soon as you open it, it shows you it's in manual. You can change it automatically with this simple macro. Another one is a custom shortcuts. So in Excel, especially in finance, people love working with shortcuts. They try to avoid the mouse as much as possible. But in some cases, Excel doesn't have the single keystroke shortcut. You have to press Alt, H, blah, blah, blah. So you can accomplish that with simple macros, and then you just assign one simple shortcut to that macro, right? So the only downside of that, there is no undo, right? So you have to be careful when you run a macro, because there is no undo with macros. So the third application is more related to reporting. So what this macro does, it allows you to select one area in your workbook, and that is going to prepare a PDF report and send by email. You just select your emails list in the workbook, and that will send an email for the people, right? The fourth one, we're going to talk about a typical problem we have, especially when we receive files from other people, external links. So you have that message which is really annoying, saying there is an external link, and then you check all the formulas, it delete everything, and the error is still there. But in most cases, you have external links in charts, in shapes, in named ranges, so they can be anywhere. So what this macro does, it goes through all the worksheets, checks all the formulas, checks all the shapes, all charts, all named ranges, and gives you a report. So you can easily go in there and fix the problem. Macro number 5 is similar problem. Another typical problem is people putting hard-coded numbers in formulas. Instead of using cells for inputs, they just put in numbers in there. So what this macro does, again, it loops through all the worksheets and check all the formulas and creates a report with links showing you where the hard-coded numbers are. Okay. Another application for that, I've seen people doing that for UDFs. They create a function, and then they put that function in a conditional formatting. So you can change the color of the cell automatically if someone puts a hard-coded number in there. So exactly the same macro, but in this case we are running with a click of a button and creating a report. So it shows all together in one single worksheet, while the other application you put as a function, and then you call this function in your conditional formatting, right? So anyone putting a hard-coded number in the format is going to highlight, red color or whatever. Okay. So this is number 5, and the title of the meetup was 5 ways to speed up. And then I put 2 more, so I called it then bonus, right? The bonus number 1 is a macro that actually gets the data directly from Yahoo Finance. So it goes to Yahoo Finance and grabs the stock data. It normally has 15-20 minutes delay, because of course it's free, so it's not the latest one. So it gets the stock market data as well as exchange rates. So I've seen financial modules, people has a list of exchange rates, so they have to always go there and update manually. So with this one, you just click a button, it goes and get the latest one from Yahoo Finance. And the last one is a simple macro to put Excel in what I call the full screen mode. So in many cases, you don't have space, right? You're trying to show something to someone, you have this scroll bar, status bar, ribbon, everything, you're trying to get more space. So with this macro, you just press a shortcut, it will hide everything. It's kind of a full screen mode, and then you can just press another shortcut, it's going back to normal mode, right? So those are the macros that we're going to talk about today. Now, I'm going to share with you a case study of a macro that we created recently. Basically, when people come to me and ask, can you do a macro for me, right? The first question is, what do you need to accomplish at the end of the day? Because in most cases, they don't even need a macro, right? They can use a pivot table, or they can use a formula, which is the best way to go. If you can use native Excel functions, go for it, right? Don't try to create a macro for something that is already in there, okay? If Excel doesn't have it, then you can go for a macro, all right? Another situation where you should use a macro is, even though Excel has the capability, the native function, but if you do that over and over again, repetitive tasks, then you can have a macro to automate that, right? And save time. And the third thing to consider is the return on investment, right? Especially in finance, you guys think about that all the time. So how much time am I going to invest creating my macro, and how much time it's going to save, and what does it mean in terms of money, right? So I'm going to share with you a case study, a process that we had in our company. Is a text file automation. So basically what was happening there, we had to run a test. That test would create hundreds of text files, log files, right? So someone would have to open one by one, analyze, summarize everything and put in a report, and then try to send to fix the problem. And we had to run that 10 times, average, right? Sometimes even more than 10 times. Every time we had to go through this cycle, we would spend easily 1 full day, right, analyzing reports, because we had sometimes 300 log files, right, so text files. So one day working on this report, which is basically opening a text file, grabbing the information in there and putting a summary in a report. So how many hours? So because we had to run that 10 times, it would take longer first time because we had more issues. Second time we had less issues last time, and so on. So you'd see the time spent working on that would reduce as soon as we were going through the rounds of testing. At the end, in most cases, we would spend on average 38 hours per application doing these reports. In that case, on average, we had 30 applications per year, right? So with that is 1,140 hours that we are spending creating reports and analyzing text files. So that's a lot of hours for an engineer to spend doing this kind of work, right? So with that in mind, we decided to go with a macro. So the idea was to create a macro to automatically analyze and create a summary report with VBA, right? So we would select all the files, the macro would compile everything in one single report and create an Excel output file that we could send to the engineering so they could fix the problems. So we invested 16 hours to create this macro. So 2 days of work, and we created the macro. So the next chart, I'm going to show what's the ROI, right? 1,140 hours versus 16 would give us a ROI of 7,025%, right? So you guys work in the finance industry. How good is that? Right? Now, if I take an average hourly rate of an engineer at $50 an hour, with 1 year we could save $56,000, right? That's a lot of money wasted in manual repetitive tasks, all right? So if you ever feel afraid again to use macros in your work, think about it, okay? Use that concept to introduce macros as tools to help you with your modeling. Not necessarily your core module, but tools to help you with reporting, formatting, data inputs, and all these kind of things. All right? All right. Let me see how it looks like here. Yeah, it's here. So this is our Excel with the macros. As you can see now, it's in full screen mode, right? There's no ribbon, or no menus, no scroll bars or status bar, right? So this is
I thought you were still in PowerPoint.
It's not PowerPoint. It is Excel actually, and this is the macro number 7. I'm going to share with you guys today. So I'm going to start with the macro number 1. So as I said, people would come here and you would have this spreadsheet. You change lots of product, quantity, price, and total. You come here and you change a lot of numbers here, so you make 20 and 50 and all these things, right? And then you just copy and paste and send this as a quotation to a client. And then your boss call you and say, how come you send a $3,000 quotation for all these products? And then you realize it was in manual, right? You just sent without updating the formulas. So what this macro does, every time you work, you open your workbook, it triggers the macro checks the calculation mode and gives you a warning, okay? So I'm not gonna close the workbook, so I put a button here to run the macro and simulate that. So if I click run macro, you will see a message coming, and it says calculation set to manual. Do you want to change it to automatic? So you don't even need to go there and change, right? If you click yes, it changes to automatic, and you can see the number here is actually $8,000. So you just lost $5,000 with that, all right? So this is the first macro. I'm going to quickly go through the code. I'm not sure if that's big enough. Can everyone see? As Daniel said, we're going to send this file after anyway, so...
You can't bold it, can you?
Not really. But I'm not going into the details anyway. It's just like an overview of how the macro works. So some key elements in this macro, as you can see on top, it's a good practice to have comments in your macros, especially if you work in a large organization. In case you leave the company, people can come there and read your comments and understand what's going on. So I have comments. The names of my macros are very intuitive. Check if manual calculation, right? So people know what's going on in the macro. So the macro is quite simple. It checks on top if application is manual. It gives you the warning message right here. I'm going to have a seat actually. So if macro is in manual, it gives a warning message. If the user clicks yes, it changes to automatic. All right. So this is how the macro works. Also, we have what is called error handling. So we don't want to see runtime errors in macros, right? This kind of screen showing debug or end. So instead of doing this, we have this block of code here, which is going to handle the errors and show a much more user-friendly message to the user, saying an error happened, the error number is this, and that's the description, right? And you just accomplish that by adding this line of code here. On error, jump to handle error, right? So this is a simple technique that can be very helpful. All right. So the next macro that I'm going to share today is custom shortcuts. So imagine in this example here, we have this table. I want to copy this column total. So I can simply click here, Ctrl C, and if I want to paste only, if I want to paste values only, how would you do it?
The shortcut.
Which one?
Alt ESP.
Right. So you have these simple shortcuts. So with this macro, you can have one single letter, right? Ctrl G, right? Which is going to be exactly the same thing. Ctrl G, it pastes values only, right? So if you want to copy the format of your table, which is the format painter, you can also have a macro to do that and assign a shortcut. So in this case, Ctrl C, I come here and I assign it Ctrl M to my macro. So I'm copying the format only to this column. And the third one that I created is clear all, right? So sometimes you just want to clear text, formats, borders, and everything all together. So of course there are shortcuts, but that would be a combination of keys. So with this macro, I press Ctrl Shift A, and I delete the whole thing altogether, right? And you notice that in here, the first two, I have just one single letter, Ctrl J, Ctrl M, because those are not used by Excel. The only two letters that are not used by Excel. So everything else, if you use Ctrl C, you're going to override the copy, right? So you don't do it, right? So an alternative, and I even put in here the tips. In my case, I wanted to use A, right, for clear all. So you just hold Shift, and then you type A. So your macro is going to be running as soon as you press Ctrl Shift A. All right. So I'm going to show the macro for that one. I'm not sure if everyone can see, but what I've done here, I created different modules, one for each topic. So everything is organized by modules here. So you can see on the left side, you have 7 modules, right? So all the macros for that particular topic is grouped in the same module. So module number 2 is about custom shortcuts. So again, very similar to the previous one. We have the comments on the top and a simple macro, right? So it checks if there is anything in the clipboard. If something is there, you just paste the values, right? It's quite simple. And of course here you can have the error message as well. So once you create this macro, all you need to do is come to your developer, macros. Your macro is going to be listed here. Okay? So you select the macro, in my case is paste values only. Okay? You just click options and then you can assign the shortcut. In this case, Ctrl J. Okay? If I want to change that and say Ctrl B, I would hold Shift and press B. Okay, so that would be Ctrl Shift B. I'll keep as J. Alright, so that's the second one I would like to show today. So the third one is the PDF report. So what is happening here, we have a pivot chart with sales by region, by category, right? So imagine I need to send this report, I have to filter by Atlantic and send to people in the Atlantic distribution list. And then I have to change my report and send to another distribution list. So I would have to come here, copy this, go to Outlook, send an email to some people, and then come here again, change my chart, copy and paste, go to Outlook, grab a new list, and send again, right? So what we have in this macro, you select the region that you want, for example, Quebec, it changes the chart, right? So in this case, I know my distribution list is right here. I need to send that to these people, right? And then I would have to change to West and take people from West, and so on. So what we have in this macro, I click Send Report, it's going to show me an input box, right? So instead of having it hard-coded in my macro to say, I always copy this section of my report, I put an input box, so you can select whatever you want to send in your report, right? So when you do that, it is going to be set as your print area, basically. So I select my report area and click OK. And then you have the second input box, which is basically select your distribution list. Okay, so you just select the cell that you have your email addresses. So in this case, it's West. So I just select these three here and click OK. So what the macro is doing now, it is printing that section to a PDF file and then using the Outlook object to send that PDF by email. So as you can see now, the macro is going to open Outlook. You have your distribution list here. You can even put someone in CC or your own name. It creates a PDF. So if I double click here, before creating the PDF, it also applies some formatting, page setup, landscape, and all these kind of things. Okay, so the PDF is attached, but my Microsoft Edge is not helping. This is Windows 10, and it came with Edge, and it opens PDF in the Edge. That's why it looks like there are some bugs in this application. But anyway, in your macro, you can change the selection. If you want to display your email first, like I'm doing now, and you can also, instead of displaying first and then hitting send, you can change one line of code and automatically send without opening Outlook, right? So this is also possible to be done. Let me go back to the Excel. Okay, so now I'm gonna open the, another thing that this macro does. As you can see here, this email address on top is not valid. It's missing a dot in there, right? So there is no .com. So the macro also checks the information and confirm if that is a real email address or not. Okay. So module number 3, you would have a little bit larger macro, but same structure, right? Comments on top explaining what the macro is about. It looks like it wants to load now, so that's good. Anyway, so in this macro, in the first section here, we declare the variables. On this second group here, what we have is the input box. So we handle the input box, and we have the prompt message for the user. In the third block, what we do, we build the to string. So you select many email address. You have to combine them with a comma. So it basically builds that to list for you. It checks if that list is valid. And the next section of the macro, it applies some formatting. Page, print area, which is what we selected before, landscape, center, horizontally and vertically, okay? So for the PDF report. And this line of the macro is actually all we need to do to create the PDF report, right? It's one line of code. It takes one section, one range of cells, and convert that into PDF, okay? So with the PDF created, all we need to do is attach that to an email. So in the next section, we call the Outlook object. So basically, it is Excel using Outlook objects to send emails. All right. And this piece of code here, you prepare the objects, and then you just put the two fields, the contacts, the subject. You can even write something in the body of the email. And that is the part that I mentioned. You can change. If you want to display first, you call display. Or if you want to send automatically, you just remove the comment from here and put a comment here, right? So in this case, as soon as I click the button, select my print area emails list, the email will be sent, right? And of course, at the end, we have the error message in case we have a problem with the macro. All right? Any questions on this macro? Okay. So number four. Number four is about external links. In this workbook, I have external links in sales, in my income statement here. I also have external links in this shape, right? So let me change to normal mode. You can see here, the text for this shape is coming from another worksheet. But when you search for square brackets, looking for links, you would not find that, right? What else we have here in this worksheet? The title of my chart is in another workbook. As you can see here, the chart title is pointing to a separate workbook. Even the series in my chart is the data for this chart is in an external workbook. Okay. So what this macro does, it looks through all the worksheets, checking all formulas, all shapes, all charts, all series, all titles, and all named ranges, because in addition to that, we also have in my named range, there is a broken link here on top. I'm not sure, probably it's too small, but this named range is pointing to an external file, and that file no longer exists. Okay. So what the macro does, as soon as I click find external links, it goes through everything and creates a summary for you. So basically, it would list here the type. It's either a named range or shape or a chart or a cell. It tells you what worksheet that problem is, the address, and the formula itself. So you can easily go there and fix the problem, right? So this is actually quite useful macro. I'm going to show how the code looks like for this one. Same standard comments, declare variables. As you can see, I also use I also indent the code, so it's easier to read. So as you can see here, if you have a if, everything that belongs to that if, I put indent. I just tab to make it easier to read. Another thing that I quite often do in my macros, I put application screen updating to false. So I disable the screen updating. So instead of having Excel, you see what's going on the screen, it consumes a lot of time. So you don't need that, right? So you just disable that and run your macro. At the end, you enable the screen updating again. Okay. I had a macro before that was taking 20 minutes to run. As soon as I put this line, it reduced it to 20 seconds, basically. It was a huge difference. The macro wasn't well designed, I would say, at the beginning. It was selecting cells and selecting worksheets. We don't need to select cells in macros. We do that manually. We go and select the cells, but in macros, you don't need to select the cell itself, right? So the first thing we do in this macro, we check if there is any external link. So this line of code here checks if there is any external link in the workbook itself. If there is anything Then we create the report worksheet. So in this case, I'm creating a new worksheet to print the report. And this worksheet is called external links report. So this block of code here would basically create that new worksheet for us. In case the worksheet already exists, it will not create a new one, because you cannot have duplicated worksheets. All right, and then we create the worksheet, we prepare the header, you know, with the type, address, and so on. And then we start checking, right? So this block here would loop through all the name and the ranges, right? And it's gonna look for square brackets or reference, right? So anything that doesn't look good in your name and ranges, it's going to be captured here, all right? If anything is found, we call this second macro to print that information into your report, okay? And then we loop through all the worksheets. So there is a for loop here that we are looping through all the worksheets in the workbook. And then we start checking shapes. Again, we check for square brackets. We check the charts, both title and series. And then we check all the cells. And the cells, we use used range. So we go through every used range in the workbook. And we check if the used range has formulas. If it has formulas, we look for square brackets and reference. Yep.
Would that mean, like if you use a table and you use table formulas and it has like the square brackets and that looking in this report?
If that is, is that a formula?
Yeah. So like if you create a data table in Excel and you reference like those fields, it uses the table header in square brackets. So like, yeah, tables or say power query, it's going to have square brackets and normal formulas. So it's not an external range, it just wants the
right
data set. So it's probably going to come up on that. You just ignore it.
Most likely, yes.
Okay.
So that would require a additional condition here to check if there is any .xls or something. You can always add conditions to the if, and that would solve this this problem, right?
What about names? There's a name.
It first checks if there's a formula, right? So in case there is a formula, it looks for the square brackets. And you're saying a name with square brackets inside the formula?
No, it won't be the formula. It'll only be if you go into the defined names list.
Okay.
Sometimes you see names that are linked to external variables.
Right. In formulas.
Not necessarily, but it'll only be in the workbook in the list of names.
Right. I know.
Yeah.
In this case, it would be probably captured here in this first block where we go through the names.
Of course.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yep. So that's a good point to be added. Probably add a .xls condition in the if statement here to make it more robust and ignore in structured formulas in tables, right? Yeah, that's a good suggestion. So for each of these loops, if we find something wrong, we basically print that to the report. And at the end, we have this block of code here, which is just adjusting the columns and the rows, auto fit, and the error handling at the end, right? So this is the macro to look for external links. All right, the next one that I have in my list.
Just before you move on, just a quick question actually about the previous macro with sending the email.
Right.
To do that using the Outlook objects, do you need to install some sort of library or something, or to access those Outlook objects for Excel?
No.
You don't need them.
As long as you have Outlook installed in your laptop or in your computer, we are able to create objects that we can reference to in Excel macros. So you not necessarily need any new library or anything. There are alternatives. Previously, I was working with Lotus Notes, right? So there was no Outlook. So I had to create a macro to send emails without email software. It was more like a more complex macros that would send directly from Excel without Outlook, right? Because Outlook doesn't support that. But nowadays, most people has Outlook, but if you don't have Outlook, you can always implement the macro to send emails directly from Excel as well.
What if you use Gmail?
If you use Gmail, that Outlook object would not work as well. So you would have to implement this alternative macro to send emails directly from Excel. It's a little bit longer, it's more complex, but it's possible.
Is that logging into a website, sign in, then send an email? Is that how the logic works?
No, there is a module. So in this example, what we have, I have a simple table here. So with this report, I also print a hyperlink in here, so you can also click in here. It's going to bring you to the cell that is having the problem. Okay, so if you want to find the next one, just click in here. You'll see another one with the problem here. Okay, so as I said before, you can have this same macro running as a function, as a UDF, and call this function from your conditional formatting. That would highlight, as soon as someone types a number, it would highlight automatically for him, right? But if you are doing audits, you want to have the whole thing all together in one single report, this approach is more efficient, okay? Now let me quickly open the macro code. So this is the module number 5, okay? So what we have is very similar to the other ones, comments, variables, screen updating, disable screen updating, and this is my main loop. So it's going through all the used ranges with formulas, okay? And then this is the tricky part. This is the logic to find hard-coded numbers. So this is a like operator in VBA. It checks for anything and then any of these operators and then a number, a hard-coded number. So this is how it finds, okay? So if anything is found here, it creates the worksheet, just like we did in the before, in the previous example. Creates a report worksheet. It checks if the worksheet exists. If not, creates a new one, right? And then just prints the information in there and adds the hyperlink right here, okay? We also adjust the column size, row size, using the auto-fit commands. And the message that you saw at the end with the total numbers is actually in this part of the code. All right, and then we have the error handler at the end.
So if you wanted to make it ignore anything that had the 0 in it, for example, how would you change that code?
All right, so you would have to come here and change this logic, basically, right? So this operator, you can put any combination of characters you would like to see. So you can see in this particular case, I'm saying a number. It must have a number and any of these symbols before, right? And that star means anything else, right? So if I want to have not 0, there is a command you can put in here to say not 0. You just put the not 0. Right? So you would change it here, and that would ignore the error. So if you have anything in particular that you want to ignore, you can always change in here, or you just leave it as is, and then you go and filter in the report, right? Just sort the report and ignore. You can say not containing match index or whatever, right? So it's flexible, whatever works best in your case. So any other questions or comments in this particular macro? And of course, because of the time, I'm not going into too much details of the code. It's more like a demonstration and overview only, but I'm gonna, as I said before, we're gonna share this file. You can always send me an email if you have any questions, all right? Okay, so with that, we completed the 5 ways, and now we're going to the bonus part. I'm actually using the bonus all the time now. I'm putting Excel in full mode, in full screen mode, all the time. So I hope the internet connection is still on, right? So this device here, this macro is about getting data from internet, right? So what it does, it goes to Yahoo Finance, it gets the stocks information. So you can select whatever you want. If you want to have the price, the name, the change, the volume, the high price, the open price, or whatever, right? All you need to do, you need to list the symbols on the left side and hit the button, right? So when I click this button here, something went wrong. And that is a demonstration of the error handling, right? Instead of having a runtime error, we do have the nice user-friendly message. So it looks like my connection is down. Probably a problem with
Are you still connected to the hotel Wi-Fi, or are you using that one?
I'm not sure. So let me see what happened here. Yeah, something bad.
I'll just do a bit of
Yeah,
Any other questions that you can think of while getting that working?
Yeah. Let me just close this file.
Our next, I was going to say our next meetup is probably going to be in June. I haven't got a speaker organised yet, so just have a little, just while you're waiting, have a little bit of a think if there's someone that you can think of that you'd like to hear from, or if you know somebody, you yourself have got a fabulous topic that you'd like to share with us, please let me know.
Just checking the connection here. Okay, so let's see if that goes well now. As you can see, we have broken links in this spreadsheet. Yes. All right, so let's see if that goes well now. Nope, no data.
Oh.
So I think we will not be able to test it now. So what I'm gonna do, I'm going to jump into the code to show how it works, okay? Let me just close it again.
So if you send us that file and
Yep.
we have an internet connection and then hit refresh,
Yeah,
assuming we're connected to the internet, that will work?
yeah,
Cool,
absolutely.
so we'll be able to try it out for ourselves.
Yeah. So let me, I was having issues with the Edge before, so maybe that's something, I should be able to restart my laptop and try it again, but that would take a lot of time, so I'm going to the code.
How much of the work that you do in macro creations are recorded versus hard-coded?
Macros creation.
Through the recording process of?
I use both very often actually. So if I want to do something that I don't know the syntax, I just go enable the recorder and grab that line from the recorder and put in my macro. I do that all the time. And that is actually one of the best ways to learn. If you want to say, I want to change the background color to blue, just record that and copy that line of code into your own macro. Right? So this is how I learned it, creating macros. Of course, you can always go online as well and search. I spent a lot of time going into forums and trying to learn macros, and then I learned that if I open a macro discussion forum, I should always go to the last one. Last post. Because what I was doing before, I was copying the first post, and that is always the one with the bug, right? So I think that's how I learned it, because I had to fix the bug, right? So if you want to go to the last one, it's going to save you a lot of time. Okay. So, all right. So this is the macro. I'm going through the code here. Actually, I have two macros, one for stocks, one for exchange rates. Okay. So the first one, I actually put in the comments here a disclaimer. This Yahoo Finance API is no longer supported, right? So it can stop working at any time. So the recommendation is you should not use that for commercial purpose or to make decisions or buy a lot of stocks based on that, okay? This is mainly to demonstrate techniques to parse data, okay? This is getting data in a string, and we are parsing that, breaking that by lines, by comma, and so on. So when you have to handle data inputs in macros, you're going to use the same techniques. I just happened to put this Yahoo application to illustrate a concept of also going to the internet and grabbing data from there. But you have to use that with, with care. So the same thing that we had in the other ones, we declare the variables, and this is the internet connection object. So we create a HTTP object at the beginning. The next group of code here, we are creating the symbols, right? When we call the API, we have to pass what symbols do we want to retrieve from the internet, right? So Australian, all orders, and everything. So we have to group them with a comma at the end, a plus sign at the end. So it's a loop to prepare that string with the symbols. And then this is where we call the Yahoo Finance API. So we just pass the address in there with the symbols string, and it goes and requests the information online and returns that in one string of text. Okay? So the response is going to be available in this response text variable here, and that's where we start parsing the information. Okay? So as you can see, first I parse by line feed, so the information comes all together, so I have to break by line. Once I break by line, I then go and break by comma. So instead of using split for comma, see, that is the Microsoft Excel. I'll have to restart. Sorry about that. My Excel is just hanging up. So
Yeah, I think we get a general idea, and we can have a look at it when you send the file.
yeah. So while it's restarting, I'm going to continue with explanation how the parsing works. So I could have used the split function to split by comma as well, but that would require additional steps in the macro. So you know the text to columns function in Excel. So this macro is using that, right? So I'm calling exactly the same function in the macro, and I'm saying convert text to columns delimited by comma and copy to this range. So this is all the macro is doing. Okay, I take a string, I call that text to column function, and I paste that in the table. Okay. So this is a different way of parsing information in Excel. It's restarting.
Just regarding the parsing bit, how do you identify the logic to parse the single string? Because when you first get a string, you probably don't know the logic to break it down.
Correct.
How do you identify that?
It's like trying and error, basically. You would have to. There is a command you can use in macros, which is debug.print. So debug.print would print the string into a text box underneath in the Visual Basic editor. You have a text box section there, just print whatever you want in there. So you just call debug print, it's going to print the information in there for you, and then you can see what's going on, understand the pattern, and based on that define I need to break by line here, and then by column here, by comma, to create the columns and so on. Or if you have access to the documentation, of the API or whatever, you can always refer to that to understand the structure of the string. All right, so it's going. It may be.
Maybe we can do that for those who want to stick around afterwards.
So I'm just going to disconnect my adapter. It may be causing the problem, I don't know. This laptop doesn't have VGA output, so I have an adapter. So maybe that's causing the trouble, right? So any other questions on the macros we've seen so far? So the number 6 macro is about getting the data online and parsing it. And the number 7 macro that I would show next is the full screen mode macro. So basically, once we have a chance to open the file, you would see there that it's basically setting the status bar to false, the scroll bar to false, the ribbon to false, and on the other macro I just set everything to true, right? So you can list whatever you want in there and set to true or false, and that would hide or unhide the components in the screen. So I created that for demonstration only, but actually I'm using that a lot myself, because very often I need to have more space to show something to someone, and Excel becomes very small. You have tables, charts, and everything on a dashboard. So I'm putting in full screen, full size mode all the time. Just
when you then send it to somebody else, can they open it in full screen?
If I send to someone else the macro?
A file in full screen mode. Yeah, we'll put it into full screen when they open it.
Well, some of the components that we hide is actually related to Excel application. So it would not be hidden because I hide them in my Excel application, right? So in this case, no. But you can always share the macro with someone using add-ins. You just save that macro as an add-in and send to everybody, and then they can benefit from the macro as well. Right.
Well, it depends on if you save the macro in the actual workbook. So if you attach it to that workbook and share that workbook with someone, they can follow that macro and it's going to hide their elements.
Right.
But if it's saved in the personal, then they're not going to have access to that shortcut.
Correct. So I think your question was about if you send to someone and they don't run the macro, would they see in full screen mode, right?
Yeah,
right.
Which you probably don't want to do because then they won't necessarily know what's happened or how to undo it.
So unless they run the macro, as he said in the workbook, it would not be in full screen mode. Because it would be kind of scary to people to see a PowerPoint style Excel. Right? It's kind of crazy. So it's now it's just restarted. So any other questions? As usual. So this is again the same macro. Let's see if that refresh button is going to work. And there we go. So we've got all the symbols. It got names, price, change, date. So 2nd of March. It gets 410. It's probably the last information available online. At the same time, underneath here, I have the exchange rates table. So basically, you specify US dollar on top and whatever currency you want on the side. And hit the refresh. It goes online and gets the data for you and put in here. So 8:41 is UTC GMT time. Okay, so this is the latest exchange rate for that time zone. So as you can see, US dollar to Australian dollar 1.38 as of now. So this is the macro itself. We went through the code already, so I'm going to jump to the last one quickly. So we can, let's choose one. So the last one that I had to share is the number 7. Is the full screen mode. I just put a shortcut in there. Ctrl Shift F would enable that. so it hides everything around, so you have more space. Ctrl-Shift-N would unhide everything, and you have less space, and then you can work with your menus. So that are the macros. So to finish, I just want to share some quick best practices on creating macros, going back to the PowerPoint itself. So hopefully you can see it's not too small. So I just listed 8 points here that I normally follow when I'm working with macros to improve performance or avoid issues, someone trying to run it and it's not running. So I put as much comments as possible in my macros. I indent the code to make it easier for people to read and understand what's going on. I avoid selection and activation of worksheets or cells, because that is time consuming. You don't need to select and then copy the value, you can just copy the value. A human would have to select first and then copy. The macro doesn't need to do it, right? So you just go and take the value. Okay, avoid that. That is causing lots of time delays in your macro. Another thing, try to avoid the worksheet name in your macros, because very simple, if someone changes the worksheet name, that's it, right? Your macro no longer works. So instead of using the name, you can use named range. You just refer to a range, named range in your macro, or you can use code name. So the worksheet has a code name, sheet 1, sheet 2, that never changes. If you change the name, the code name never changes. Okay? You can find the code name in the Visual Basic on the left side. You would see the worksheet name and the code names. You can just say sheet 8, take the value, for example. It will never change, right? And then another thing that I do, I try to disable the screen all the time. That is also time consuming, a performance optimization technique. In some cases, I disable calculation, right? If your macro is changing data inputs, and that is related to formulas, every time you change a value, the formula is going to recalculate. So your macro is going to take ages to finish, right? You change a number, Excel recalculates. You change another number, Excel recalculates. So what we do, we change, at the beginning of the macro, you change the calculation mode to manual, run your macro, and then at the end, you can force a calculation and change it back to automatic, okay? But then you just had one single calculation. And as I showed before, error handling. So we don't want to see runtime errors, debug buttons. So always put a error handling in your macro. More user-friendly, and you can tell what's going on, having a description. All right, so that's pretty much all I had to share today. Does anyone have any other questions or comments?
There's a point on the slide that says use with and with.
Oh, yeah, sorry. I skipped that one. So this is when you have, for example, active worksheet dot value. If you see that you're repeating the same thing over and over again, you can use with, and then you just take the active worksheet to the with. You say with active worksheet, and everything in between with and with is going to be related to that worksheet. If you know what I mean. I can show you in the macros. That is to make the code easier to read, so you don't have duplicated and you repeat that over and over again. And also that is going to increase the performance a little bit, but it will increase performance. It's easier for the VBA to run that code versus having the same repetitive lines all the time. That's a good one.
If you recorded a macro, it probably spent about a minute processing information.
Right.
And you felt that if you spent 2 hours to make it run 30 seconds, would you waste your time on that?
Oh.
You just leave it?
Yeah. It's all, as we discussed at the beginning, the return on investment. So if you feel that you would use that macro for the entire year, or even you can share with your team, and everyone would benefit from that, I would invest my time to develop it. Otherwise, just do it manually. Yeah. So you always have to think about the benefits of the macro. Sometimes it's just not worth it.
That's all.
Any other comments? No? All right, thank you very much.
Well, thank you. Thanks so much, Marcelo. That was fascinating, and I'll see you all again in June.